I mean, the schedule, which is the shooting schedule, like what day we're going to shoot what scenes, is going to change right up until probably the day before, because it has to change as we change locations and availability of actors and equipment and people and all this kind of stuff. Maybe not the day before, but certainly up until a few days before, but not dramatically. I mean, the dramatic changes will be now, and that's primarily based on the availability of locations. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. The original shooting schedule was we only scheduled during the week, weekday shoots. We did not schedule any weekend shoots. But in the contract, we've said very clearly, subject to change because of availability of locations. So, for instance, if we were to get a real working hospital and they said you can only shoot on the weekends, that's when we have to shoot, or an office building or something like that. And they say, we'll give it to you, but it has to be on the weekends. So we will change our shooting schedule to accommodate that, and hopefully everybody's good with that. They should be, because we've given them enough notice. I prefer to shoot during the week because I like my weekends with my family and stuff like that, but it's a movie shoot and you got to do what you got to do. Hello everybody, we're back. It's the new week, and we just finished our latest week on the production, and we're going to give you an update of everything that went on. So as usual, I'm going to start, if you don't mind, and I'm going to start with location scouting, because that's the thing that was the biggest thing this week. We've talked about location scouting in past weeks, but it's an ongoing process, and it's super important because for two reasons. Three. One is, if you get the right locations, it changes the whole look of your movie. Like, I mean, a location is the look, the setting of the movie. And remember, we're not going to shoot on sound stages because it's too expensive to rent them and build sets. So we're going to shoot on location for everything pretty well. So getting the right look is so important. And as I talked about before, and getting a place that's logistically shootable, like that's not too noisy, not beside an airport, that has parking where your crew and cast can park, that has, bathroom facilities, that has the stuff that you need to make it logically possible to shoot and enjoyable, actually, so that you're not worried about, can I get a parking spot? You're not worried about where you're going to have lunch or where you're going to go to the bathroom or all these kind of things. So we keep that in mind, the logistics. It's not just the look of what you have, but the logistics. And by the way, closely related to the look is sort of the amenities of the room. Like, let's say, for instance, we're shooting, like we need to shoot in a church. All right. So we looked at some chapels, and one of them was amazingly beautiful, but gigantic. And these gigantic chapels have extremely a lot of sound issues because the ceilings are so high and they're all concrete, and the sound reverberates. So, generally you'd have to hang sound baffles and all this kind of stuff, which we can't afford to do, and the church wouldn't let us do. And also, filling a church that size with extras is going to be extremely expensive, and we don't have the budget for that. So these are things you take into mind when you're looking at these locations. So even though we loved the look of this chapel, it didn't make sense. It's too big. The sound's not good. The logistics aren't good. The administration's, even if they gave it to us for free, it would be difficult to shoot in it. So we decided that we'd have to find something a little smaller, that might not look as good, but it will suit the size of the production better. So that's that. And then I said there's a third thing. So, the third thing is obviously cost, right? You want to stay within your budget. Everybody says, well, wouldn't it be great to shoot here or here or here? And of course it would be, if you can afford it. And locations cost money, and there's permitting fees, and there's all kinds of stuff that you have to keep in mind. And you got to make sure that it fits into your budget. So sometimes you get some locations for less money than you budgeted for, which is good, because sometimes you have to pay more for other ones. So hopefully the whole thing balances off. But depending on how aggressive and ambitious you are in terms of what size locations and how fancy they are, you've got to figure that out. And depends on your budget, how much you have to spend on location. So I'd say there's two challenges that we're embracing right now. One is finding access to the locations that we want. Like, one of them is a hospital. And finding a hospital is no easy feat, because most hospitals don't want film crews shooting in them. And we don't want to spend tons of money setting up a hospital scene in a set because we're not sure we can get it accurate enough. right? So that's a combination of finding a place that will actually allow us to shoot and how much they want to charge us. Because the starting point in a hospital is a lot of money because they got to sterilize, and it's if it's a working hospital. Now there are sets that you can rent that are hospital sets, but they're also very expensive, and sometimes they're far away, and you got to move your whole crew there. And we need to shoot for 5 days in a hospital, so the sets that we found are would probably involve the crew living up there for 5 days. So we have to factor in the cost of hotels and food and travel and all this kind of stuff. So now the good news is that we're finding stuff. Sometimes you just get lucky. Like today, we scouted a location. We scouted a university. All right, and just off the cuff, I just as a joke, like we were scouting offices and classrooms and meeting centers and stuff like that in the university. And just as a joke, I just said to the university guy, I said, "Hey, by any chance you don't happen to have a hospital on campus, do you?" And I was joking because, and he said, "Well, we have a nursing school." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, we have a whole nursing school. It's over there in that building." I said, "What do they do in the nursing?" "They teach how to do nursing." I say, "Do they have any like rooms set up or anything like that?" He goes, "I think so, but I don't know. But I don't know." Anyways, we leave him, and I say, "Let's walk over to the nursing school. I want to see it." We walk right in, and sure enough, what's in the nursing school? Like mock setups of hospital rooms. That's how they teach nurses how to be nurses. There's like like a full ward, like 8 beds and gurneys and this and that, and it looks like you're in a hospital, but you're in a nursing school. So all of a sudden, we're thinking, "Holy smokes! Like this could be the place to shoot some of these scenes." Maybe not all of them, but then across the hall is like an intensive care unit, not a real one, a fake one, but set up exactly the same way because nurses are being trained to do it. So that's what I would call getting super lucky. Now, of course, we have to negotiate the price on that. It's probably not going to be cheap, but it's probably going to be a heck of a lot easier and cheaper than shooting in a real hospital because it's not sterilized and it's not a working hospital and there's no patients and they don't teach on the weekends. So it's going to work out really well. And that we got really, really lucky with that. And there's a convention center scene also, which we might get really lucky with also, because they've got a room that looks like we could dress it up as a convention center and match it to another room that we can kind of shoot exteriors with. So these are the kind of things when you go looking, sometimes you find them. And, it's hard sometimes to sit in front of your computer and just research them because you can't tell or you can't see. And I'm telling you, literally, I asked that as a joke. Do you have a hospital? And it because they had a nursing school. I didn't even know they had a nursing school, and it didn't even occur to me that a nursing school would have this kind of facility. So that's where when you're out on the road doing this kind of stuff, sometimes you get lucky. And I think that's going to work out, and I hope it does because it's unbelievable. The setup is just literally we felt like we were standing in a real hospital. Maybe even better because they have to train nurses on every situation, so they probably have other stuff that hospitals don't even have, so that they prepare them for all hospitals. So that's location scouting. I mean, there was this crazy hotel. You can talk about, you found it, Sally. I mean, I don't know if we can use it, but it was so outstanding that I said we should just write a new movie just to use this place.
Yeah, so there's a hotel in San Diego. It's called the Lafayette Hotel, located in North Park, and it's completely renovated. I think it's been open for about a year now, I think, since the new renovations, but it's all very retro, maximalist,
Art
the
Deco 20s.
Art Deco, yeah, very like they had a giant bar, they had a diner inside the hotel. They had a whole event space under it. There was like separate rooms. They had a chapel in there, which we were looking for also. They have these bowling alley rooms. There's just all these secret. You walk down this small hallway and it's a whole new big space. So that would be amazing to use. We don't know how much it'll be yet, but that was a
And
really cool location.
and that's the kind of location where we went looking for like just like sort of more just like a bar restaurant type of thing or a lobby, and we discovered this gem. And then all of a sudden we're thinking, okay, what scenes could we shoot here instead of shooting them sort of, how do we rejig the script a little bit to put, say, this dialogue scene into this setting because it's just so unbelievable. So that's when the location kind of dictates what this where the scene's going to be. Now it's going to be the same characters having the same conversation, but it might be in a setting that which we could never probably imagine or afford or dress up because it's there. And if they're willing to let us use it, then that might be a better place to shoot certain, like for instance, like a coffee shop scene, right? So they have like a little bar area with a coffee shop, which is way more magnificent and interesting and colorful and art deco than any coffee shop we're ever going to find. So is there any reason why the two characters can't sit in that coffee shop as opposed to, say, another coffee shop? No, we just never envisioned that. But as soon as you see it, then you start to envision it. So that was a lot of fun. Anyways, I'm pretty pleased with the way, after today anyways, that we got lucky with the hospital thing, that how locations are going. It's still a bit of an adventure because we're still juggling the budget on it. We got to make sure that we can afford everything. And there is some art, set decoration and art props and all this kind of stuff that will have to be used in certain sets to dress it all up. So we're balancing all that out. But that's always going to be a balancing act until you finally get there. And we don't have a huge art department. Kelly is the head of art, and she's got some people who work with her. So they're doing their best to try to figure out, what things will cost. But I think we're doing well in that area. I'm happy
On the
about that.
technical side, when you're looking at different locations and interiors specifically, are you also figuring out the cost of cinematography for that room based on lighting and how you would have to light these scenarios based on the lighting that's available?
Yeah, great question. We're not figuring out the cost of it because we know that we're not calculating lights and that type of thing because we're not the cinematographers. So, but we will take our DP once we say these are the locations that we like. We'll take our DP there, and we've taken lots and lots of photos and videos, and we send them to the DP. But we are very cognizant of lots of things like lighting, okay, like how much natural light comes in and what angles, how many windows, sound. Are there sound barriers? Are there baffles? Is it an echoey room? Is the floor carpeted or tiled or whatever? So we're very cognizant about all of that kind of stuff. But we're looking more for look and storytelling than we are for technical. But the DP will come, and hopefully most of the time he'll say, okay, yes, I can work with this. We might need to bring in this, and this, a couple more lights or something like that. But it's very rare that a DP is going to kill that. It's usually, if anything, it's based on way too much, like too many mirrors or something like that, or really bad sound. And sound is not the DP's department. Obviously, it's a sound department, but our DP knows enough about sound to know that it won't work. So I think we know enough about the technical side that we're not even looking at those kind of locations. I mean, when we see one like that chapel I just said, we turn around and we say, wow, this would be fun if we had $10 million to put up sound baffles and all that kind of stuff. We just turn around and walk out and say, this is just not going to work. It's too big. It's too ambitious. But yeah, it's very important that we make sure. So a lot of the discussion today in the convention center room was about the technical side, what it would take to set it up, what angles we could shoot at, where could we put the cameras, where would we put the lights. A lot of it was about that. And that was just with the art department. So the DP was not there. But again, we know enough about it to be able to have that discussion. Okay, so that's locations. The next thing that we're still working on, and again, the next, I'm going to say month, is going to all be updates on what we're talked about the week before, because these are ongoing things. They don't happen in one day. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is casting. So we are well into casting, and we're talking about callbacks. So the first round of casting was all done, self tapes, sent in that we looked at on our computers, and then we started narrowing it down and choosing who we would want to see live. And we are going to do the live callbacks a week Monday. So next week's call, we'll talk about that a little bit more. They'll be the following week, and where we go and we actually see everybody. We're actually going to do it in Los Angeles, even though we're shooting in San Diego, because most of the actors that we're hiring will be coming from LA. And we have a studio rented, and we'll give them scenes, and they'll do readbacks, and we'll work with them and say, hey, try it this way or try it that way. That's how callbacks work. But what would be fun is we'll probably shoot some video from the callbacks, and then we could maybe show it in the next episode or in the following episode. But we're relatively early in the casting phase for when we're going to shoot the movie. Like we're 6 to 7 weeks ahead. But I prefer that. Some shoots only go 3 to 4 weeks ahead. I just want to make sure that we give ourselves enough time and choices. If we can't find what we're looking for, or if we have to keep going, we have more time to do it. So, and as I said, casting's fun, but it's, to me, one of the most stressful things, just because there's just so many darn good actors out there, and narrowing it down is really hard. But I talked about that before. Okay, then the next thing is crew. So we're almost finished hiring our crew, and I know both of you are involved in that. So why don't you take that? Like, Jared, tell us who you've been talking to for the roles you're talking to.
Yeah, so one of the main things I'm hiring for right now is a unit publicist. So it's basically somebody on set that's running around taking photos, conducting interviews, making sure cameras are set up for that sort of project, miking people up for the interviews, just everything revolved around capturing kind of media on set. So for both for publicity for the movie and then for behind the scenes content, all sort of in one, so you can kind of promote the movie. So I've been conducting interviews through that. We're working with a lot of San Diego State University students. So I've been interviewing a bunch of them, trying to find the best candidate that has some experience on set, that's not required, but just some experience on set, so they kind of know the flow of how a set works. And then 2, obviously experience with cameras and some microphone equipment. They don't have to be experts or know the exact camera model, but just some experience so that they have that backlog of knowledge that they kind of already know about. And then otherwise, it's just kind of who you think would be a hard worker on set, who you think would be a go-getter, somebody that would just not just sit around and be lazy and on their phone, even though they will be on their phone to capture certain content, not on their phone just browsing social media. So somebody who can just be a go-getter and go get them. And then also somebody who just has the right personality. Somebody who can be willing to go up to some of the cast and be like, hey, are you guys free for an interview? Scheduling with different people on the cast and crew to set up the interviews. Just somebody who's really willing to put themselves out there and not be worried about what other people think if they're trying to set up things, that sort of thing. And then also be willing to just have flexibility and be adaptable to different situations, because obviously things on film sets don't go correctly all the time. And then also just be willing to do whatever kind of needs done, because this role is a little bit flexible. So they'll be helping with a lot of different departments, a lot of different things, running around, grabbing things, being a gopher at certain scenarios. So just somebody you can kind of see doing a lot of different things. But yeah, that's kind of the role I've been working to hire with. So right now we're trying to determine everybody's availability dates for the 2 months for May and June, so that we can figure out if we can go with one person the entire time, or if we kind of need to supplement with another person while another person's out. So we're kind of just figuring out the scheduling wise right now. But yeah, that will be probably wrapping up next week. So probably in the next podcast, we'll be able to talk about that, about who we kind of finally decided on and why, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because that rule is, I want somebody on set every day to capture, what's going on, but I don't see them doing more than, say, 4 hours a day in the unit publicity side. And then the other 4 to 6 would be done helping out with other things, what we call a swing PA, production assistant. So, or, some days it might be the whole day. Some days it might only be 2 hours, depending on what we're shooting and what's going on and how many casts there are. Sally, what about you? You've been juggling a lot. You're juggling the whole crew, more or less, because you're working with all the departments.
Yeah, so what I've been doing is I've been coordinating a lot with Scott, or our DP, and Kelly, our art director or production manager, and kind of getting a list of their crew that they want. So there are people here and there who have like a day or two that they're not able to make it. So it's been my job to kind of figure out fill-ins or day players for those days. And then also I've been talking with other students as well for PA positions. And I'm kind of looking for the same thing that Jared mentioned. And also just kind of like excitement to be on set, especially for PAs, especially for PAs who are students. So any kind of excitement to be on set is, I find that they bring a better work ethic when they're excited to be there. So yeah, is there anything else
Yeah.
for,
Well, in the Zoom, I don't know if it's better to do this as an edit, an add-in, or whatever, but I just want to show you what we give to the crew to contract them. So I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna show you two things. So the first thing is what we call the policies and operation guidelines. Okay, so say production guidelines and operations, and we send this memo to everybody, and it tells when the shooting days are, and subject to some changes, what the working hours are, the overtime policy in case we go overtime, late to set, leave early, hours of days missed. We talk about meals and breaks, about payroll, and about teamwork, which is cooperation. So this is just an overview of sort of what our expectations are on the set, and how we operate, so that people know the kind of the style of what our production is, and I think they appreciate that. So that's one document. And then in addition to that, we give them this document, which is their, here, I'm just loading it. It's their deal memo. All right. So this is the contract that they're going to use to sign to join on to our production. This one's obviously a little bit more complicated, as you can see, because it is a legal deal memo, and me having legal background, I like to do it properly. But so you fill in your name and your address and your phone number and all your ID numbers and all this kind of stuff. We put in the rate that you're going to do, what your position is, how many days you're going to be expected in pre-production, this type of thing, the start date, the name that we're going to use for the credits, dietary restrictions, emergency contact info. So the crew member will fill that all in. And then we talk, then it's the legal contract. So, and the rest of this is all legal stuff. All right. So this is the deal memo, the first part. And then this is what we call the standard terms and conditions, otherwise known as STC, standard terms and conditions. And this is basically an overview of what it's very, we call them standard terms and conditions because you're probably going to see this in most deal memos. I customize it a little bit. Now, what I do to make life easier so people don't have to use lawyers is I write this note in here and I say, note, for ease of reading the STC, standard terms and conditions below, each item has a simplified explanation in italics to assist in reading the contract. The simplified explanation does not replace the language of the contract clause, and it is not legally binding. Please read each clause in its entirety to understand the legal and contractual terms of the agreement. But I put in italices, the first sentence, what the paragraph's about, so that people who just want to understand it in a sentence can do that. So like, for instance, services. So it says, this is an employment agreement. Company hires employee, employee works for company. And that's what this whole paragraph basically says. All right. But it uses a lot of legal jargon to say it. All right. The next thing, term. If all goes well, employee will work for the entire production period. If there are issues, company can change the length of engagement. So that's what this is. Basically says you're hired for the whole production. If you screw up or you do something bad or don't show up to work or something like that, you're going to get fired. So I just, in italics, I write a sentence in English, not in legal jargon, explaining it. Rate. Rate and work times to be specified by company. Employee cannot work extra time without consent of company. So the rate is in the first part of the document. We saw that. So they know what they're going to be hired at, and they can't do their own overtime if they choose to. We have to approve the overtime. Exclusivity. Employee will not work on other projects while working on this project. I mean, that's an easy one. Purchases, rentals, expenses. Employee must have prior approval to make purchases. So you can't buy something on behalf of the production unless the production manager or the line producer has approved it. So each of these terms have an explanatory sentence. Okay. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of terms. This thing is 12 pages long. All right. And, people get a little nervous and a little scared on a legal document, but everything is very standard. It's what you'd expect on any engagement like this, employment engagement, and it's all explained relatively easy. And of course, it's all there if you want to read the legal stuff. And I'm always there to answer questions if anybody has them. But it's pretty, like, it looks scarier than it is. It's pretty straightforward and standard. Certainly if you worked on another show before. That's it. That's what the contract looks like. All right. So everybody's going to get theirs probably this weekend or early next week. And this is how they sign. And once they sign and agree, we sign back. And this is how we engage people. So this is the legal document. Now this is just for crew. All right. Obviously, there's documents for cast, for locations, for insurance, for this, for that, for everything we do has more or less a legal agreement. That's probably the biggest one. And that's because the crew works the longest, has the, gets paid the most amount of money. Like that's a big component of the production. So that's why that one looks as big as it does. But if once you read it once, you're comfortable with it, you understand it. And the other thing is we are going to have a full crew evening in about 3 weeks where we invite the crew for to a little local microbrewery. We have some food and some beers and we chit chat. We get to meet each other. And then I explain the whole thing to everybody. So I'll go over it. And if anybody has questions, I ask the questions. We talk about the production, but it's mostly about a meet and greet. So we get to know each other before we get on set the first day. And I find that's super, super helpful. But we will talk about that in one of the sessions after we've done it in a couple weeks or 3 weeks. But that's where the legal contract. So everybody will get their contract. I guarantee if they have questions, they'll call me or email me or you, Sally. And, most of that stuff's the legal stuff. So I'll probably address most of it. But I don't think there'll be any issues because, believe it or not, that what I showed you just now is actually the simplified version of a contract. Like on a Hollywood contract, that might be 30 pages, probably not 30, but 20, whereas that was 13. Like I literally cut out everything that I didn't think was going to be necessary on the size of production we're doing. I wanted to make sure it was as readable as possible. So that's actually the brief overview summarized version of what could have been an extra 7 to 10 pages. That's about it. Those are the main things. I mean, what else, Sally? What else have you been working on?
Nothing new from last week, really. It's
I
just
mean,
been,
we're still juggling some scheduling. I mean, you've been changing a couple of, some of that's based on location, some of it's based on mostly location availability.
yeah. I've been kind of massaging the schedule a little bit, moving days here and there, based on location availability, script changes, some needs for cast or other people involved, like Margaret or other people. So just juggling those things. Yeah, there really isn't anything new. It's just kind of massaging the same kind of information for everything that we have, and we're just basically, instead of having it here, we're putting it there, or moving this over there, or splitting things up, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, the schedule, which is the shooting schedule, like what day we're going to shoot what scenes, is going to change right up until probably the day before because it has to change as we change locations and availability of actors and equipment and people and all this kind of stuff. Maybe not the day before, but certainly up until a few days before, but not dramatically. I mean, the dramatic changes will be now, and that's primarily based on the availability of locations. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. The original shooting schedule was we only scheduled during the week, weekday shoots. We did not schedule any weekend shoots. But in the contract, we've said very clearly, subject to change because of availability of locations. So for instance, if we were to get a real working hospital and they said you can only shoot on the weekends, that's when we have to shoot, or an office building or something like that. And they say, we'll give it to you, but it has to be on the weekends. So we will change our shooting schedule to accommodate that. And hopefully everybody's good with that. They should be, because we've given them enough notice. I prefer to shoot during the week because I like my weekends with my family and stuff like that. But, it's a movie shoot and you got to do what you got to do. So we'll be flexible. And then there's a couple of script changes too that they don't really change the locations much. They're mostly dialogue. Some of them do, just because we want the dialogue to take place in, a different location. Like, we changed an office to a steakhouse type of thing. So that's where it changes. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change the shooting day if we can get that steakhouse on the day we want it. And, we've already started scouting that. And I think there'll be lots of flexibility. And that's because 90% of steakhouses are only open in the evening for dinner. So we have the whole day to shoot. So we can pretty well shoot anywhere in, as long as we shoot during the day. But that's it. Jer, anything else on your part or any questions?
One of the things I'm starting to do is starting to prep almost a media and content schedule for the shoot. So I'm starting to pre-plan what sort of content we're trying to get on set when we're gathering different interviews and content, just video or photos. So I'm starting to start to plan it out. It's very bare bones at this point, but next week I'll start going more in depth in creating actual strategies for what sort of videos we want to create, what sort of content we want to get, so that we can know, rather than getting on set and being like, oh, I wonder what videos we should make now that we're here. It's just pre-planning those videos so that we know, okay, this day or this week, or when we're shooting this scene, we want to get this sort of video, like that sort of stuff. So that's one thing I've started to kind of, in the back of my mind, start to plan. And then next week I'll go more in depth in that.
Mm-hmm. If I forget to tell you, and I know I'm doing it on a video, but this is important. I expect that your person or you are going to take shots of all the characters in their various wardrobes. So like unit publicity shots that we can potentially use in artwork, posters, advertisements, social media posts, whatever. Some of it will be on set, and I, as the director, will give you time as we're setting things up to say, hey, publicists, come on, take some shots right now in the actual environment. And then some of them will be off, where they'll be staged a little bit more, where you can actually pose an actor and get them, to do what you want to do. And it's so important to do that, by the way. So many people don't do that while they're shooting. They say they'll do it afterwards, and then they don't do it because it's hard to get the actors back. It's hard to find a time, a location to do it. It's just so much easier to do it while you're on set, and there's lots of time to do it. Because while the lighting people are setting, or the grip people are setting up their setups, you can work with the actors. I mean, generally they're in makeup, they're ready to go, they're in wardrobe, and they're waiting around anyways. So they have time to take some shots. So we'll figure that out. And I just have to be reminded on set from you, because my head will be somewhere else thinking about other things, and I don't want to forget about that. But that's it for today. I think that's, like I say, it's an ongoing process that we'll continue to build on. And we shall keep it going next week. All right.
Thanks for watching this episode of We're Making a Movie. Make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for our next episode.